The Primitive Advantage Mission Log. Entry 1247. The humans call their world Earth. Such a simple name for what should have been the easiest conquest in hegemony history. When our scouts first detected the electromagnetic chatter emanating from the third planet of this unremarkable yellow star, we were amused. Radio waves, crude chemical rockets that barely escaped their gravity well, nuclear weapons that couldn't even crack a moon. By all accounts, they were centuries behind even our most primitive member species. The Hegemony Council classified them as a Class II developing civilization, worthy of observation, perhaps eventual uplift, but certainly not a threat to our expansion into this sector. That was before the invasion began. Mission Log. Entry 1248. The initial orbital bombardment went exactly as expected. We targeted their military installations, communication hubs, and population centers with surgical precision. Their primitive aircraft fell from the sky like wounded insects. Their naval vessels, floating metal coffins powered by ancient combustion engines, were vaporized before they could even fire a shot. Within 6 standard hours, we had achieved orbital supremacy. Their governments had either been eliminated or had surrendered. By every metric in our tactical manuals, Earth should have been pacified. The ground invasion began at dawn on their largest continent. 10,000 of our finest warriors, equipped with energy weapons, powered armor, and battle drones, descended upon what their maps labeled North America. We expected the scattered survivors to flee in terror or beg for mercy. Instead, they fought. Personal Log. Lieutenant Crickstar, 47th Assault Battalion. I've served in 12 planetary conquests across 4 star systems. I've seen species with natural armor plating, others with venomous claws, and some with psychic abilities that could paralyze our battle computers. But I've never seen anything like what happened in the human city they call Detroit. Our intelligence indicated the settlement was largely abandoned after the orbital strikes. Thermal scans showed maybe a few hundred survivors huddled in the ruins. Easy cleanup, we thought. My squad was tasked with clearing a section of collapsed industrial buildings, what the humans called factories. That's when we encountered our first human soldiers. They weren't wearing any recognizable military uniforms, no powered armor, no energy shields, nothing but crude ballistic weapons that shouldn't have been able to penetrate our personal deflectors. One of them was missing an eye, another had a primitive prosthetic limb. They looked like refugees, not warriors. The engagement lasted 17 minutes. When it was over, I was the only survivor of my 12-soldier squad. How? Mission Log, Entry 1249. The reports from the surface are troubling. In the first 24 hours, we lost 847 soldiers. Not to sophisticated weapons or superior technology, but to humans using what can only be described as antique projectile weapons and improvised explosives. Our battle analysts are struggling to explain the casualty ratio. By all calculations, a single hegemony warrior should be able to eliminate dozens of humans before falling. Instead, we're seeing the opposite. I've ordered a tactical review of all engagement footage. Perhaps there's something we're missing about their defensive capabilities. Combat Analysis Report. Senior Tactician Velthon. After reviewing 847 hours of combat footage, I've identified several anomalies in human behavior that may explain our unexpected losses. Anomaly 1. Adaptive improvisation. Our soldiers are trained to execute predetermined tactical doctrines. When faced with unexpected situations, they consult their command hierarchy or battle computers for new orders. Humans appear to lack this structure entirely. Instead, they adapt their tactics in real time, often using their environment in ways our simulations never predicted. Example. In Engagement 23A, a human soldier used their primitive communication device to trigger an explosion in a fuel depot 3 kilometers away, precisely timed to coincide with our dropship's approach vector. The soldier had no way of knowing our flight path, yet somehow calculated the exact moment to detonate their trap. Anomaly 2. Irrational courage. Our psychological profiles indicate that humans should retreat when facing overwhelming odds. Instead, they often become more aggressive. In Engagement 67C, a single human armed with a crude projectile weapon charged directly at a full squad of our warriors. The attack was clearly suicidal, yet it created enough chaos for other humans to outflank our position. Anomaly 3. Collective sacrifice. Most species prioritize individual survival over group objectives. Humans routinely sacrifice themselves to protect others, even strangers. This behavior is tactically irrational but strategically devastating. Our forces have been unable to adapt to enemies who consider death an acceptable outcome. Recommendation: request immediate reinforcements and authorization to use Class 7 orbital bombardment weapons. These humans are far more dangerous than initial assessments indicated. Intercepted human communication. Translated: this is Echo Base to all resistance cells. We've been monitoring alien communication channels and their translators aren't perfect. We're getting fragments of their tactical discussions. Here's what we know. They're confused as hell. They keep calling us primitive and illogical, but they're hemorrhaging soldiers. Their computer models can't predict our tactics because we don't have any. Not the kind they understand anyway. These bastards have been conquering planets for centuries, but they've never fought anyone like us. They're used to enemies who think like they do. Hierarchical, predictable, logical. They can't wrap their heads around why a grandmother with a hunting rifle would take on a squad of armored aliens, or why a teenager would strap explosives to himself to take out their supply convoy. They don't understand that we're not fighting for territory or resources. We're fighting because this is our home, and we'd rather die than let them have it. Keep hitting them where it hurts. Every alien we kill is one less invader, and every day we hold out is another day for our people to organize, make them pay for every street, every building, every room. This is our world. Let's remind them what that means. Personal log. Medic Specialist Yuxandra, 15th Support Division. The wounded keep coming. Burns from primitive chemical explosives, projectile wounds from metal fragments, injuries from improvised weapons that our medical scanners can't even identify. But it's not just the physical damage that's concerning. Our soldiers are breaking, not their bodies, but their minds. They're requesting transfers, claiming illness, even deserting their posts. I've seen veteran warriors who've conquered a dozen worlds reduced to trembling wrecks after a single engagement with human forces. Yesterday, a sergeant from the 12th Assault Battalion was brought to me after what should have been a routine clearing operation. He was physically unharmed, but completely catatonic. When I finally got him to speak, he kept repeating the same phrase over and over. They're not afraid of us. They're not afraid of dying. How do you fight something that's not afraid of dying? I've been a combat medic for 15 years, and I've never seen anything like this. These humans are doing something to our soldiers that our enemy profiles never prepared us for. They're not just killing our warriors, they're breaking their will to fight. Mission log. Entry: 1253 casualties now exceed 3,000 soldiers. The human resistance shows no signs of weakening. If anything, they're becoming more organized and more effective. Our intelligence suggests they're sharing tactical information across their entire planet using their primitive communication networks. More disturbing, we're starting to see innovations in their weapons and tactics. They're studying our technology, learning our weaknesses, and adapting faster than any species we've encountered. A human weapon that was ineffective against our armor on day 1 has been modified to penetrate our shielding by day 5. I've requested reinforcements from the Hegemony High Command, but the response was unexpected. Instead of additional troops, they're sending a delegation of xenobiologists and military historians. Apparently, our situation has attracted attention from the highest levels of Hegemony leadership. Arrival log. Dr. Thalneth, Hegemony Institute for Xenobiological Studies. I've spent the last 40 years studying developing civilizations across the galaxy. When Commander Zethkar requested academic support for what should have been a routine conquest, I assumed it was a bureaucratic error. Primitive species don't typically require scholarly analysis. After reviewing the combat data from Earth, I understand why I was summoned. Humans are not primitive. They're something else entirely. Every species we've encountered follows predictable patterns of technological and social development. They develop agriculture, then writing, then mathematics, then basic sciences, then space travel. Each stage builds logically on the previous one, creating species that think in hierarchical, systematic ways. Humans appear to have developed differently. Their technology is crude, yes, but their tactical thinking is unlike anything in our databases. They don't think systematically, they think chaotically, unpredictably, with a level of creativity that borders on the impossible. More importantly, they possess something that our most advanced species have lost: the willingness to sacrifice everything for principles that aren't quantifiable. They fight not for territory or resources, but for abstract concepts like freedom and dignity and home. We've been treating them as a primitive species, but they're not primitive. They're young, and young species, I'm beginning to realize, have advantages that mature ones have forgotten. Combat Report. Captain Mordak, 8th Mechanized Infantry. The humans have learned to use our own weapons against us. 3 days ago, they overran one of our forward positions and captured a full arsenal of plasma rifles, energy grenades, and a portable shield generator. We expected them to fumble with the technology, perhaps accidentally injure themselves. Instead, they reverse-engineered our weapons in less than 48 hours. This morning, they attacked our main supply depot using modified versions of our own plasma rifles. The modifications were inspired. They'd somehow increased the power output by 300% while reducing the energy consumption. The weapons were completely unstable. They would probably explode after a few dozen shots, but the humans didn't care. They used them like suicide weapons, causing maximum damage before the inevitable malfunction. Our engineering core has been trying to achieve that kind of power-to-efficiency ratio for decades. These humans accomplished it in 2 days, using nothing but scavenged parts and what they call trial and error. How is that possible? Intercepted human communication, translated. To all resistance cells, this is Professor Victor from MIT. I know the situation looks hopeless, but I need you to understand something important about our enemy. I've been analyzing their technology and tactics, and I think I know why they're struggling against us. These aliens are incredibly advanced, but they're also incredibly specialized. Their weapons are perfect for their intended use, but they can't adapt them for new situations. Their tactics are flawless when executed according to plan, but they fall apart when the plan fails. They're like a master craftsman who's spent centuries perfecting a single tool, but has forgotten how to improvise when that tool breaks. We're not smarter than they are. We're not stronger, but we're more flexible. We can adapt, improvise, and innovate in ways they can't. Every time we modify one of their weapons, every time we use their equipment in ways they never intended, we're doing something their minds literally cannot process. Their strength is their weakness. Their perfection is their vulnerability. Keep fighting. Keep adapting. Keep showing them that sometimes the best solution is the one nobody thought of. Personal log. Commander Zethkar. I've been a soldier for 37 years. I've conquered worlds, subdued rebellions, and enforced the hegemony's will across a dozen star systems. I thought I understood war. I was wrong. War, as I knew it, was a contest between organized forces with clear objectives and established rules. Armies met on battlefields, technologies clashed with technologies, and the superior force emerged victorious. It was brutal, but it was logical. This isn't war. This is something else entirely. The humans don't fight like soldiers. They fight like a force of nature. Every human is a potential combatant, every civilian a possible spy, every building a potential fortress. They don't have a command structure we can target because everyone is in command of themselves. They don't have supply lines we can cut because they create supplies from nothing. Yesterday, I watched surveillance footage of a human child, couldn't have been more than 12 standard years old, teaching adults how to modify our communication devices into tracking beacons. The day before, an elderly human used a primitive chemical mixture to disable one of our heavy assault vehicles. Neither of them was a soldier, yet both were more effective than entire squads of our warriors. I'm beginning to understand what makes humans so dangerous. It's not their weapons or their technology. It's their minds. They think in ways we can't predict because they don't think like us. They don't think like anyone. Final analysis report. Dr. Thalneth. After 17 days of observation and analysis, I've reached conclusions that will undoubtedly disturb the hegemony high command. Humans are not a primitive species. They are an unfinished species. Every civilization we've encountered has reached a state of technological and social equilibrium. They've solved the fundamental problems of existence and settled into stable, predictable patterns. They've become, in essence, complete. Humans are still becoming. They possess something that we've lost in our pursuit of perfection: the ability to fundamentally change themselves. Not just their tools or their tactics, but their entire way of thinking. They call it adaptation, but it's more than that. It's metamorphosis. In the span of a single generation, humans can develop new technologies, new social structures, new ways of understanding the universe. They don't just learn from their mistakes. They become different beings entirely. This is why our predictions fail. We're trying to analyze a species that's transforming itself in real time, faster than our models can process. But there's something else. Something more disturbing. I've studied their history, their culture, their psychology. Humans are not just adapting to fight us. They're adapting to become us. Every piece of our technology they capture, every tactical doctrine they observe, every weakness they exploit, they're not just learning our methods. They're learning to think like we think. They're becoming us while remaining themselves. In their primitive archives, they have a saying: know your enemy and know yourself, and you need not fear the result of 100 battles. I fear we've made a terrible mistake. We came here to conquer them, but we may have given them something far more valuable: knowledge of us. Recommendation: immediate withdrawal from Earth system. Reclassify humans as Class X potential threat. Establish permanent quarantine protocols. The hegemony has conquered 847 worlds. We've subjugated 312 species. We've never encountered a defeat we couldn't analyze and overcome. This is different. Humans aren't just defeating us. They're teaching themselves to become something that could defeat us anywhere, anytime. They're not just fighting for their freedom. They're fighting for their evolution. And they're winning. Emergency transmission. Commander Zethkar to Hegemony. High Command priority override. Command authorization required. High Command. This is Commander Zethkar reporting from the Earth system. I'm requesting immediate authorization for full fleet withdrawal. The conquest of Earth has failed. Not because we lack the firepower to destroy their world. We could glass their entire planet from orbit. But because destroying them wouldn't solve our problem, it would only delay it. In 3 weeks, humans have learned more about us than most species learn in centuries of contact. They've reverse-engineered our weapons, decoded our communications, and adapted our tactics. More importantly, they've learned how we think. If we destroy Earth, we eliminate the immediate threat. But humans have already spread to other star systems. Their space stations and colony ships are more advanced than we initially believed. Some of them are already beyond our reach. We came here to conquer a primitive species. Instead, we've taught them everything they need to become our equals, and judging by their rate of advancement, they won't remain equals for long. Dr. Thalneth believes they could pose an existential threat to the hegemony within a single generation. I believe she's being optimistic. Humans don't just adapt to challenges, they thrive on them. Every obstacle we place in their path makes them stronger, smarter, more dangerous. They're not just fighting us, they're using us to accelerate their own evolution. High Command, I've spent my entire career believing that superior technology and tactics would always triumph over inferior forces. Humans have proven me wrong. They've shown me that sometimes the most dangerous enemy is the one that has nothing to lose and everything to learn. We should have left them alone. We should have let them develop naturally, at their own pace. Instead, we've created something that could destroy everything we've built. The real tragedy is that we did this to ourselves. We created our own worst enemy by trying to destroy them, awaiting orders but respectfully recommending immediate withdrawal and establishment of long-term monitoring protocols. These humans, they're not just primitives who learn to fight, they're something entirely new, something we've never encountered before, and they're just getting started. Epilogue. Personal log entry. The withdrawal from Earth is complete. Official records will show that the conquest was suspended due to logistical challenges and resource allocation priorities. The truth will be classified at the highest levels of the hegemony. But I know the truth. And I suspect that someday everyone will know it. We didn't retreat from Earth because we couldn't conquer it. We retreated because we realized what we would unleash if we did. Humans are not just another species. They're what we used to be before we became civilized, before we became predictable, before we became safe. Their evolution itself, given consciousness and will and the terrible, beautiful capacity to change. We'll monitor them from a distance. We'll study them. We'll hope that when they finally reach the stars in earnest, they'll remember that we chose to leave them alone. Because someday, they'll be the ones making that choice about us. And we can only hope they'll be more merciful than we were. End log.